Hello and welcome to Ask Paul Mathers, an online feature where you can send a question to me, Paul Mathers, via the web address above, and I will answer your question about arts, literature, culture, etiquette, history, in the form of a video. Our question comes from Kevin in England. Kevin asks, is there a greater interest in the USA in Sir Thomas Browne than in Great Britain? And if so, why? Discuss. Of course, you'll all remember that Sir Thomas Browne was a physician in the 1600s in England and gained quite a bit of fame from his book Religio Medici, which is the religion of a physician, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a unique book of the period in that it's probably one of the most conversational works of literature from the 1600s I've ever read. It's a fascinating and beautiful book. I can't recommend it highly enough, and in fact below I will provide a link to my previous blog entry about that book in particular. Sir Thomas Browne lived through what arguably was the very easily, arguably, the most tumultuous time in British history, right up the center of the 1600s. If memory serves, he was knighted by Charles II. Possibly not the best foot to start off my online Ask Paul Mathers series on, but I don't really know exactly how many people in Great Britain are reading Sir Thomas Browne at this point in space-time, but I have some educated guesses, and I would imagine that the people who are reading Sir Thomas Browne are probably academics and people, Anglican, people very interested in similar theology or church history. And I'm going to venture a guess and say that in the United States, it's a very similar group of people, although I think that the academics is probably larger and the theological circles are a little bit smaller, and there are some reasons for that. If you were to come to America and look for a copy of Sir Thomas Browne's work, I think much to your chagrin, a lot of what you would find are print-to-order books. You can find a lot of these on eBay or online used booksellers, and what they are generally is somebody who has a work in the public domain that is no longer in print, and if you want a copy of it, they will print you a copy of it for a fee. That is where I got our copy of Religio Medici, and you'll notice that it's a very slick, glossy trade paperback, probably more than one would expect, and that tends to be my experience with print-to-order book companies, that they are either people who take painstakingly good care of preserving these works of literature that have fallen by the wayside and are no longer in print. This publisher, in fact, calls itself Forgotten Books. You can see there. I'm not sure it's exactly forgotten, but the care taken, I feel, shows the heart of the people who are printing the books. There's another kind of print-to-order books which tend to look like somebody has a work in the public domain that when somebody sends in an order, they walk over to a Xerox machine and staple them together and send them off, and that's as nice of a copy as you're going to get. All of these things are changing now with ebooks and the free availability of things in the public domain. I probably could have asked Lori this before I started this video. I do believe that it is available in a Kindle or Nook format. The other publisher you'll find in America who publishes Sir Thomas Browne is the Harvard Classics Library, which all of you who read my blog are familiar. I'm reading through the entire 52-volume set. Dr. Charles Eliot in 1910 chose Religio Medici to be one of the books in the 5-foot shelf of books that he contended if one reads the entire series, one would have the equivalent of a Harvard-level education. He held that book in that high of esteem. And thanks to the popularity of the concept in the series, that is a series of books that has been in publication pretty much since its inception. And you can buy the Harvard Classics series fresh off the printing press and in a regular format or a deluxe format, which is all leather and gilt-edged. Neither here nor there. One of the things that... I was going to talk a little bit about the religious circles. There is a lot of... within sectarian Christianity in America, there's a lot of history worship, a lot of hero worship of the great fathers of the faith or whatever. I experienced a lot of this in Quakerism and a lot of this in Reformed circles. One of the things that makes me suspect that this might not be quite as strong in Sir Thomas Browne's favor in America currently is that the American version of the Anglican Church is the Episcopalian Church, and it's kind of famously in a very fractured state at the moment. I'm not sure that there's going to be quite that much of a rallying point behind the great fathers of the faith, unfortunately, at this point in time. All of this brought to mind the question that I would take a step further to your question: how is it possible to get the United States more interested in Sir Thomas Browne? And the immediate thought is, of course, we're suckers for movies or HBO miniseries or something along those lines. I think that would do the trick nicely. Might be kind of a hard sell, but it is certainly something I'd enjoy. I think probably a more practical route would be the sort of book that would be reviewed in the New York Times. We have a show here in America called Fresh Air on National Public Radio. It's kind of our antidote to the vast wasteland of Rupert Murdoch produced tripe. And if you're at a cocktail party of people of a certain level of intelligence and you're talking about something that you heard on Fresh Air, someone you heard Terry Gross interviewing, chances are somebody there will have heard it as well. It's kind of a intellectual shorthand. Terry Gross is a bit of a cultural Prometheus in our culture here. And I was reminded very much of a couple of weeks before Christmas. I heard not the actual interview, but that there was going to be an interview about with a lady who had written a cultural history of the art form of ballet. And just hearing that such a thing existed caused me to bump this right to the top of my Christmas list. And that's how effective the whole thing is. And I have a suspicion that if someone were to write a book to capture the intellectual interest of America on the subject of Sir Thomas Browne, that would be the perfect venue for it. Another thing that occurs to me is that about the time Sir Thomas Browne was busy being born, there was a person in Great Britain, Guy Fawkes, planning a gunpowder treason plot. And one of the things we're seeing continually in the news in America is that there are thousands of protesters across America walking around wearing Guy Fawkes masks. They are not radical papists. They are people who are discontent with the state of their government, deregulation, the corporate greed, all that sort of thing, and seeking to overthrow and have a new chance of restructuring the country. More likely what they have in mind is either a book by Alan Moore called V for Vendetta, in which the main character, who sets place in a composite of dystopian outworking of Thatcher's England, reacts by trying to overthrow the established order, although actually more likely what they're responding to is a film version of that same story, which, yes, I own. Stephen Fry was in it. And on the other side, I know that there are so many people in both movements who get so upset when you talk about this, but on the other side of the coin, there's a movement in America called the Tea Party, who have kind of misappropriated the founding fathers of America in the same way that the Occupy people have misappropriated the Guy Fawkes image. I have a suspicion that someone like Thomas Browne, someone who is a man who is interested in the compassion and morality and virtue of religion, but also in the compassion, morality, and virtue of science and the great truths there, and that the two need not be separated and ought to be married. Someone who might usher in a neo-age of enlightenment, where people are reasonable. I think that there's a strong call for that in this country. I know that it's something that very much appeals to my sensibility. I could see someone like Sir Thomas Browne becoming a rallying point for a certain reasonable sensibility in America, and I think I may have a nominee for who might be qualified to write such a book. So, thank you, Kevin, for writing in, and all of you out there, keep those questions coming, and I will keep the videos producing. Ta-ta!